Hi, I'm Dennis Vanderginst. Join me in a series of entertaining and interesting conversations with entertaining and interesting people. We'll explore various aspects of the human experience and what makes life more fun. This is Uncommon Convos. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dennis Vanderginst, along with my partner in crime, Dana Watkins. And if you're a fan of reality television, you're in for a treat today. Our guest is the lovely Holly Hoffman. Holly was the last remaining member on the season 21 CBS hit reality show Survivor Nicaragua, and the last one from your tribe and the last woman, if I remember correctly. All right. Well, since then, Holly has become an author and a motivational speaker, and of course, we're going to talk about that. I met Holly many years ago when I saw her speak at an event, and thereafter I invited her to speak and judge at a pageant fundraiser I was part of, and we've been friends ever since. So that I make sure that I get this out there, also please be sure to check out hollyhoffman.com if you need a great speaker for an event and to order her books. So from a personal perspective, I can tell you that she is a true inspiration, and her story is one that we get to explore today. So, Holly, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, Dennis. Thank you for that welcome. Wonderful being here and seeing you.
Well, it's wonderful to see you. And we got to catch up a couple of weeks ago, which was great because we hadn't talked in quite a while. So I really appreciate you coming on today and talking to us. I'm sure that our audience is going to be enthralled by everything you have to say. One thing, as we get started, one thing I wanted to go over is obviously your story doesn't start with Survivor. You had lived your life before Survivor, but you have a quote on your website which seemed really insightful about your personal story, and that was, nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. And I think that's attributed to Marie Robinson. I believe she's an author.
Yes.
Is she not? Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that Survivor was your opportunity to start anew and make a new ending?
You know, it was. It kind of opened up a door for me that was closed for a long time. And I really lived my life with a big chip on my shoulder, and I was a very angry person. And it was basically because of the way I grew up. I did not have a very good childhood. My father was an abusive alcoholic. And I had two older brothers, and my mom worked 3 jobs to raise 3 kids. We didn't have a lot of money. When my parents divorced, she had $7.35 in the bank. We didn't have a car. We sat many nights at the dinner table with a bowl of cereal. Sometimes it was dry. And growing up, I always went back to those days, and I always kind of felt sorry for myself when there were kids that had nice things and I didn't. I had to work 3 jobs all the way through high school to buy school clothes and my basketball shoes and so forth. But in the long run, it really taught me that struggles pay off. You just can't quit. And going into Survivor, you realize that you can survive without anything. You really can get by in life. And I totally had a moment playing that game where I realized to myself, wow, I'm not the true survivor my mom is. Because the one thing my mom never did is she never complained, ever.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, it's funny to hear you say that you growing up had a chip on your shoulder, because in all the time I've known you, that has not been something that has been evident, on a personal level. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but there was a point in time several years ago that I was actually approached to do a reality show as well. Whole other story, whole other show. Didn't do it for a variety of reasons, but it always made me wonder, having gone through that. I did actually film and put together the sizzle reel and all that type of thing, and it was an amazing experience. But it always made me wonder what it is that makes somebody, be prompted to apply for a reality show or a game show or something along those lines. So what was it that got you stoked about, trying out?
Well, all three of our kids went off to college, and I was a swim coach for 17 years. And I was a stay-at-home mom, coached the swim team, and I did everything for my kids. I followed them in all their events. I went to all their sporting events and everything. And I remember when Elizabeth left, our last one left to go to college, I was standing in the kitchen and I thought to myself, now what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do? My kids are gone. I've lived my life for my kids. And Survivor came on that night, Survivor Samoa. And I stood there and I went, I should try to see if I could get on this show. Not even thinking about making it. I thought, I'm just going to throw a video together, and I made a 3-minute audition tape. It wasn't anything spectacular. I stood behind a table, put a picture of each one of our children, lifted them individually, and explained they were all off to college. And I didn't actually send it in right away because I thought, do I really want to do this? I don't like camping. I am definitely afraid of snakes. And so some of the people, my family, some of my friends said, Holly, what do you have to lose? Send it in and see what happens. So I thought, okay, I'll send it in. Well, I didn't hear anything back. But for me, it was basically, a lot of my friends tell me I was going through menopause and I was having bad moments.
That's what a woman who's going through menopause really wants to hear if it were true, right? Yeah. No.
But I think it was just, I wanted to just see if these people were going to call me back. And I thought, and I was a Survivor watcher, so that also helped. And I thought, oh, it's not real anyway. I'm sure you just go out there and they put you in a tent or in a camper after you film for 6 hours. And so it was just kind of a last minute decision, thinking, okay, I'll just send in a tape and see what happens. And I did it. And 8 months later, they called me. Wow.
For those who have been living under a rock for the last umpteen years, whatever it's been, explain to some of our audience what Survivor, what we're even referring to. I just presume most people know what the reality show Survivor is. It's probably one of the first reality shows, isn't it?
Yes, it was. It's the first and, of course, the longest. The last couple seasons haven't been on because of the pandemic, but they will be up filming this summer again, so hopefully it'll be on in the spring. But anyway, it's what it is some seasons have had 18 players, some have had 20, and there's 2 tribes. And the 2 tribes live in a very remote area in the middle of the jungle. We were in the jungles of Nicaragua. And then you meet every 3 days and you do a challenge. If you lose the challenge, you have to go to something called tribal council, where when you go to tribal council, you have to carry a torch.
There it is.
There it is. And your torch is on fire. And then, of course, if you're voted off, you take your torch, you put it in front of Jeff Probst, the host of the show, and then he puts your torch out and you're out of the game.
So you want to keep that torch lit.
You want to keep your torch lit, and you want to keep it lit for 39 days. If you make it to day 39, which they usually have 3 people who make it to day 39, the last 9 people that were voted off, they come back on day 39 and then they cast a vote for who they want to win. So they drop you off. You have 1 set of clothes. You have a swimsuit. You have a water bottle and a bag. That's it. And I thought it was, I didn't think it was real. I had this vision in my mind that I would get out to the jungle, we'd play the game for 6 hours, we'd go in a camper, a tent. It is absolutely the real deal. I wore the same clothes the entire time I was there. I didn't brush my teeth as long as I made it. We lived in it rained the first 17 nights we were out there. You could hear the howler monkeys screaming at night. Of course, the cast and the crew, they're around, but you're not allowed to talk to them. They're in rain gear. They have the cameras, but you have to fend for your own food. It is the absolute real deal.
I can say that I'm sure Dana can really identify with that, because she doesn't brush her teeth for a month at a time, wears the same clothes, and she has a lot of holler monkeys around her all the time as well. So
I can't even. So when you were dropped off, did you still have that vision of, okay, we're going to get a nice meal at the end of the day in the trailer or whatever?
I did.
Even when you were dropped off?
Even when I was dropped off. But backing up a little bit, when they called me for my first casting call, I actually thought it was fake. I thought somebody was playing a joke on me because I was like, what? And
Something Dana would also be doing. I'm sure.
I totally would.
And then I had to fly to LA for a casting call, and I was there the entire week. They flew me home, and then I didn't find out for 3 weeks until I made it. But my season, I had asked one of the casting directors, there were about 100,000 people that applied.
Wow.
So just getting on this show is really hard. I know of people who have applied for practically every season. We had one lady on our tribe that applied 17 times.
Wow. Had you applied previous to actually
No, it was my
your
first
selection?
time.
It was your first time.
And have you ever thought about doing even a game show before?
Never.
This was wow. You chose a big
I
one.
actually always thought it would be fun to be on The Price is Right. That's about as far as I
There-
go.
Sure.
But I had never ever thought about doing anything, and it was just standing in the kitchen, having a moment, and thinking, "What would it be like to try to get on this show?" And
Well, you mentioned something that I had always thought as well. I just I was never an avid follower. I'd watch it every once in a while. I may have even watched it when you were on. I don't recall. But I had the presumption that you see people all haggard and dirty right now, but they go off to the hotel and eat and drink and party and whatever, and then they're back on. But you've obviously convinced me otherwise that's not the case.
the absolute real deal. I mean, and then of course I had a really hard time. I started on a bad note. Day 5, I was done. I walked up to a producer and I said, I can't do this.
Let me stop you there, Holly, because I know this story and I want to get back to it. But I want to talk about Holly BS. And by that, I mean before Survivor, not the other thing. Because I know, you've given us a little bit of information as to, how and when you came to that decision. And I want to talk more about the why. I know a little bit, obviously, through the years about your background. You mentioned having a tough childhood. You mentioned having a chip on your shoulder. But I know you also had some competitiveness in you based on your childhood and high school years. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into Survivor a little more.
I did. I'm very competitive, and of course that I think totally helped me in Survivor. But I was a basketball player. I was a 3-time state champion in the 100 and the 300 meter hurdles. Held a state record for 13 years. So I was very competitive. I have 2 older brothers, so we were always in the driveway playing basketball. I started to run, and that's really where I felt like, I don't know, it was almost a release for me. When I was at home and I felt pressure and things were not going well, I would just go outside and I would start running. So yes, I was an athlete growing up, ran at the University of Northern State University. So it's always been a part of my life, and I've just been a competitive person. I've just had that drive to compete.
And I can attest. Now, I don't know how tall you are, but I know you're pretty tall because I'm 6'4", and you're as tall as they come when I'm standing next to a woman. So in heels, you're probably pretty close.
I think I am.
So you mentioned kids, and if I recall, you have 3. Is that right? Mm-hmm. When did you start having kids?
I was very young when I got married. I was married at 19, and I had 3 kids by the time I was 23 years old.
Wow.
So I was very young when I got married and started a family. And I basically, I was going to college, and then I stopped going to college. But when the second one was born, I went back to school. I always wanted to be an elementary teacher. And then it was very hard. It was commuting one way was an hour and a half, 2 little kids. And I remember going and picking them up from the daycare, and Alex fell out of the crib, hit her head on the cement floor at the daycare, and had this big knot on her head. And I drove home that day, and I said to Charlie, I said, I'm done. I'm staying home. I'm raising the kids. And that's what I did. I stayed home with the kids. I taught aerobics for a while. So I kind of got a release to get out of the house. But yeah, so that's basically what I did. And now our oldest son, he is a lawyer. And our middle daughter, she and her husband have a dental office. And then our youngest daughter, she and her husband are both doctors.
So you did it right. And,
yeah, both a dentist and a doctor. I'm set. Never assisted living for me.
That's right. Plus, I think anybody who is going through, raising 3 children at a young age like that, that's pretty good practice for a survivor right there.
Exactly. Well, especially not even when they were younger, but when they were all 3 teenagers. That was survival.
Now, I think you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it today, but I know you've mentioned it to me before, that you did some, you were a swim coach, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
For a while before this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, and you weren't, you may have been a swimmer, but you had no familiarity with that, did you?
I was not a swimmer. I was not a swimmer. In fact, my brothers basically taught me how to swim. I never had a swimming lesson. And then my freshman year in college, I signed up for intermediate swimming and I almost flunked. And then one of the girls from the track team, she and I would go to the YMCA, and she basically taught me how to swim so I could pass intermediate swimming. So, but it was our youngest child, Austin. He was 6 years old, and he just jumped in the pool, and he just had a love for water. And he loved to swim, and he loved it. And I thought, gosh, I should see if I can do something with this talent. And I signed him up to be on a swim team, and he absolutely loved it. And then I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to do this and start a swim team and invite all the kids from the community, and whoever wants to be part of the swim team can be part of the swim team. So that's what I did. And then I started my own team, I coached the team. I had to learn a lot about everything because I really didn't know a lot about competitive swimming. And then both of our daughters both went on to college and swam on full scholarships.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was that like your full-time gig before Survivor?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk more about Survivor. You started to tell the story about how when you first started the game and what that was like.
Yeah. It was horrible. It was just, I got out there and the thing about our season, one tribe was 30 and younger and one tribe was 40 and over. So it was old versus young.
How is that fair?
I know. And I actually think that was one of the reasons I got picked, because at the casting call, they made us do a lot of physical fitness, running, swimming. And I think they wanted some older people that were athletic as well. So when people say to me, well, how do you think why were you chosen? And that's, I think, one of them, because I was athletic and so forth. But I just didn't think it was real. And I got out there and I was like, this is real. And you know how it is when you leave your car and you have to run into the grocery store and it's pouring rain? Imagine sleeping in a jungle for 17 nights. And we filmed in Nicaragua during the rainy season. And it was just, it wasn't a sprinkle, it was a downpour for hours. And you'd have to just lay there and shiver and you'd try to hide under a tree. But I was day 5, I was done. I just walked up to a producer and I said, I can't do this.
I watched early on in Survivor, mm-hmm. and I don't think there were really teams back then. I think it was kind of every man for themselves in the beginning until people mm-hmm. kind of figured out, how to play. And for me, community is a huge thing. When you were on there, especially in the beginning, was it, even though you had a team, was it lonely, or did you feel like you were part of something?
When you make alliances, when you start, you're part of a tribe. There's 10 on each right. tribe, and you're actually playing for yourself, but you mm-hmm. also have to think about who you can trust, because right. you do make alliances and you go up to people and say, hey, let's stick together. Let's try to make it to the end. I won't vote you off if you don't vote me off, so forth. So you are playing an individual game, but on the same hand, you're not. Because I got out there, I made an alliance with a lady right away, and she was the first one to be voted off. And I went, oh no, this is not good. Yeah. So then I tried to switch my alliance. And then on day 19, you merge. Both tribes came together. There were 12 people left at that point. And then, of course, you have to think there is a lot of scheming that goes on.
That was the word that was coming to my mind.
Yeah,
scheming.
And it's a lot of scheming. And when I left to go play this game, I said, I am not going to lie, cheat, or steal. And I did within the first day.
Oh, you would have to.
I did. Yeah.
Well, and I know you were surprised about how tough it was going to, how tough it ended up being. And then on day 5, you had about had it. What happened then?
I didn't fit in with my tribe. They were I felt like they were treating me like I was some hick from South Dakota, like this little farm gal that didn't know anything, and I had watched the game, but I just felt like I didn't fit in with these people. And there was a gentleman on my tribe, and he was extremely wealthy. And I don't want to offend anyone when I tell you this story, because if you can afford these things, it's wonderful. But he was bragging how he was wearing $2,500 pair of pants and an $850 sweater, and he had these $1,600 pair of alligator shoes. And I'm like, to play Survivor?
Right.
And he just kept making fun of me constantly, and I had just had it. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. So I stole his $1,600 pair of alligator shoes out of his bag, and I put them in the sand, and I threw them in the ocean.
That'll show him.
It was not good. It was just fantastic. Not good. And I just lost it. We've all been there, right? We've all been to the breaking point of being like, just yelling or I don't know. And I after I did it, I walked back to camp and I thought, this is going to be on national television. I coach swimming. I have these kids. I have 3 kids of my own. What is my community going to think? So I went back and I tried to find him, and I couldn't find him.
Oh, no.
And then we're sitting at camp, and he's walking around looking for his shoes, and he can't find them. And I'm just thinking, this is not going to end well. And I finally just confessed. I said, you know what? I took them. They're gone. I threw them in the water. And he looked at me and said, if you were a guy right now, I would hit you. And I just,
wow.
So I did it out of anger. I did it out of, I was tired. But watching that on national television, because you film this show and then you come home and you watch yourself, that was really hard to watch myself.
Be that person.
Stealing, destroying someone's personal property. And I use that in my presentation. I use that as an example of, if you had a camera on you 24 hours a day, could you do it? Everything that you said about people, and it would make people think about their words and their actions a little bit more.
I love that question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
How much of what actually happened remained on the cutting floor, during editing? That, what would you have liked to have seen that took place that was never aired?
Oh, no.
Or what are you glad didn't air?
No, there were some things I'm glad that did not air.
Yeah.
Like, really, really glad. I was actually surprised. I knew the shoe incident they would show because that was great television. And I even warned my family. I said, day 5 is not good. But I just want to, I will have a story about that, but I just want to finish on day 5. Jimmy Johnson, the former NFL football coach for the Dallas Cowboys, was on my tribe. And Coach Johnson actually applied 3 times to get on the show. He's a huge Survivor fan. Yeah.
Wow.
First time he didn't make it. Second time he didn't pass his physical. And then the third time he made it. But he actually saved me. He and I went over and we sat on this log. And I said, I'm done. I'm quitting. I was crying. And they showed this whole clip. And he said, Holly, I'm really going to try to encourage you not to quit. You need to stay. And he did. He talked me off the ledge. He said, you know what? You can do this. And I'm telling you, I just got up from that log and I just was like, he's right. I can do this. So he's the one that basically saved my game.
And I don't know if I remember this accurately, but is the prize like $1 million?
It's $1 million.
$1 million.
Yes.
Obviously, Jimmy Johnson wasn't playing for the money.
No,
I would assume.
He told us that the first day out. Yeah. He said, you know what? I am not playing for $1 million. I don't need it. I'm here to help others further themselves in the game.
Well, and really, when it comes down to it, when your odds are so stacked against you, were many people really playing for the money, or was it the experience and the exposure? Or
Well,
yeah, they were there for the money. You were there for the money.
yeah, they were playing for the money. Oh yes,
Yeah,
they.
yeah.
So yeah, they were.
You
Definitely.
too.
Oh yeah, everybody wants
Want the money?
cars, right?
If you're gonna do it, for sure, right?
I know.
So is
People
that your-
say, if you won $1 million, what would have you done with it? And I said I would have built a nice swimming pool in our community. I would have definitely done something for the community. Coaching swimming that long. We didn't practice in a community pool. We practiced in a private pool. So we didn't even have the correct length of a swimming pool. We practiced in a 20 by 40 foot pool. So yeah. So that's what I would have done if I would have won.
Now, I've heard you tell the story about, you wanting to quit, and then that Jimmy Johnson kind of talked you out of it. What was going on behind the scenes? I mean, were the producers freaked out? Is that something that's common, that people end up just withdrawing from the show?
Not a lot. I mean, there have been people that have quit. In fact, after the merge on day 19, when you make the merge in Survivor, that's huge. That's great to make the merge. And after the merge, there were 2 gals that quit. They walked off the show. They had 11 days left.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Why at that point?
They just said they couldn't do it anymore. And they were on the young tribe. They were a couple of the younger players, and they quit. I tried to talk both of them out of not quitting. I said, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. Don't do it. And they both ended up walking off the show. But yeah. So, but the producers, before I talked to Jimmy Johnson, no, this was after I talked to Jimmy Johnson, they were actually setting up the cameras for me to do my exit interview. And I was sitting on a log, and they were setting up the cameras, and Jeff Probst, the host of the show, was on his way to interview me. And the last thing Jeff Probst ever wants is somebody to quit. So I was a little scared to have an interview with Jeff Probst. And one of the producers, his name was Johnny, he walked over to me and he said, are you absolutely sure that this is what you want to do? And I remember sitting there and thinking, what are my kids going to think, my family, my community? I'm going to quit and I can't get back on this show. And bam, I just got up from the log and I started walking. And Johnny looked at me and he said, he hollered, where are you going? And I remember turning around and I looked at him and I said, I'm not quitting. I'm going to play this game. I signed up for this. I'm not a quitter. I need to continue playing.
Well, good for you. I'm sure it ended up being the right decision for you, and
completely, yeah.
Has obviously led to a lot of other opportunities that we want to discuss too.
Yeah.
By the way, so speaking of Jeff Probst and other folks like Jimmy Johnson, have you kept in touch with any of them since Survivor?
I kept in touch with Jimmy Johnson. In fact, he wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh, all right, cool.
Let's see if I can find the page and show it to you guys. But yes, he did. He wrote the foreword to my book. He is a wonderful, wonderful person. Here we are.
Nice.
Yeah. So
very nice.
And then, you do keep in touch with people from your season. Some people, of course, when the tribes hadn't merged yet, some of those people got voted off before I met them. So, but you keep in touch with those people. We just had our 10-year anniversary. And so we had a big Zoom. Wow. Everybody came on and we all Zoomed and kind of caught up where everyone was and so forth. So you do keep in touch. Are
there ever like reunions among, different seasons where they have people, hey, we're going to have all the season, everybody that's ever been part of Survivor is going to show up here during this weekend and we're just going to party? Anything like that ever occur?
They don't really have reunions, but they have charity events. Like I've been in Temecula, California for breast cancer. They invite reality people to come in and they do special things to raise money. But it's not just Survivor. It's Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race. So you get to meet a lot of other survivors, other reality people. And then I've also gone to Florida. They do for Make-A-Wish Foundation. They've done fundraisers there. I've gone there. So if you're invited to an event, that's usually where you see. Of course, we did talk about going on a cruise, our season, because it was 10 years. But then with the pandemic, we weren't able to do that.
Yeah,
So
and I want to talk a bit about the pandemic, but you ended up staying, obviously, and you finished. I think you said it's a 39-day stint, and you made it to day 38. Is that right?
I was the last one voted off.
Yeah. By the way, was it the winner from the young team or the older team?
The young team.
Yeah.
I was left with 3 young gentlemen, and I was in a very tight alliance with 2 of them. And the 3 of us were going to go to the final 3. And the one that we were going to vote off on day 38, he won the last challenge. And because he won the last challenge, he was automatically in the final 3. So between the 3 of us that had the alliance, we had to pick someone. And I actually thought it was going to be a tie. I thought one of the gentlemen was not going to vote for me. And then, I was voted off. But, like I say in my presentation, I wasn't 1 day short. I was 38 days long.
That's right.
And in life, you're never 1 day short to take an opportunity to step out of your comfort zone. And sometimes we need to remember that.
And you did so much better than so many of the people on either tribe. And obviously you beat out 100,000 people or so to even get on the show. Yeah. So that's amazing.
But you learn a lot about yourself when everything's taken away as well. There were many days that I sat in the jungle all by myself, didn't have a cell phone or computer, clothes on my back, and you sit and you really reflect about things in your life. So, yeah.
Well, and speaking of, obviously you went through the struggles that they present to you, in that framework for the show. But I know that you've been through struggles. You mentioned some of the struggles before the show, and I know you've been through some struggles since the show.
Oh, yes.
And I want to talk a bit about that because obviously so many people have struggled this past year with the pandemic and the impact that that's had on so many people's lives and businesses and whatnot. So I think, people can really come away with some good inspiration knowing what you've had to face, the adversity you've dealt with between the show and now and have had to overcome. So can you speak to that a bit?
Well, we all have a story to tell. And I think sometimes when I get on stage, they look at me and they are like, oh, she's had a great career. She's been on a reality show. But deep down, we all have a story. Everyone. No, there's no one person that I know that has a perfect life. And I was married for 32 years. That was a huge struggle. My husband decided he wanted a divorce, which I totally did not expect. One thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to remain friends, which was hard right away, very, very hard because of the situation. But you have to do that for the sake of your family and for your kids. And that was a very hard year. We separated for a year, and then of course we went through a divorce. So it's been 3 years, and it's still hard because I have never been alone. I was married at 19. I always had Charlie at my side, or one of my children, and now all of my children are married. And Charlie has gone his way, I've gone mine, and I didn't even know how to put my little sticker on my license plate on my car because Charlie did everything for me. And so it's really made me a more independent person that, I moved into an apartment. I didn't have anything when we separated. I slept on the floor for the first 3 nights until I found a couch. And I just kept working really hard. So I went from an apartment, I purchased a condo and loved the condo. And I thought, you know what, I can do this. And I just purchased my first home. And I'm 54 years old. So it's never too late. Charlie and I do remain friends, but I have learned a lot about myself, that I am independent. I'm a lot stronger than I thought of. And women in general, everybody needs to remember this, but women in general need to realize how strong they really are. And you don't need someone to hold your hand and guide you and say that you can, because you can tell yourself that you can.
And I think that's a great point and something that our audience can certainly identify with, especially, it could be men, it could be women, but I think if there are women that, have been through a similar situation where they have been the homemaker and not used to taking on some of these obligations and responsibilities, it can be tough. And like I said, the reverse can be tough, but the fact is that they can do it, as you have done it, and I think that's an inspiration.
Yeah.
And speaking of inspiration, I know what you've done since the show. You've become a successful motivational, inspirational speaker. How did that happen? I mean, did you know going in that this is where you want to take your career after Survivor?
I had absolutely no idea. Zero. What happened was, during the show, people asked me if I could come and just talk about it. So I did, but I had to be very careful because I could only talk about the episodes that were aired. I couldn't leak out any other information. So after the show was over, which was December 13th, my first speaking presentation was January 7th, and it was to a Kiwanis club. And they said, would you just come and speak about your experience? And I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to talk about? So I called Jeff Probst. First I called CBS and I said, I need to talk to Jeff. And he called me back and I said,
of course.
Right. That's what we all do.
To speak.
I'd like to speak to the president also, please.
And I said, I got asked to speak. And he said, great, you've got a great story to tell. You did a 180, you didn't give up. And I said, well, what am I supposed to talk about? And he gave me the best advice ever. He said, speak from your heart and tell your story. And when I go up and speak, I customize my presentations to the group that I'm speaking to. If I'm speaking to an all women's conference, a mixed conference, whoever I'm speaking to, I try to tell my story to fit what their event. But
right.
It's just a story that we've all struggled. We've all had situations in our lives, and my story is, because I always get the whole, reality show woman, what does she have to tell us? And then I start talking, and it's like, I relate things back to the real world. And then I spoke the first one, and two ladies came up to me and said, hey, would you be willing to speak at our event? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I did that for a year, and then I started researching professional speaking, and I thought, I think I can make a career out of this. So I started charging a very small amount, and then after the second year, I had a speaking bureau reach out to me. And
by the way, your check's in the mail, Holly. But
how many years has it been? And I said no. And I thought, I'm not going to go with a speaking bureau. And then I thought about it a while, and I thought, maybe I should just give it a whirl. So then I wrote my first book, Your Winner Within. I had a website built, signed with the first bureau, and then she started booking me speeches for, money that I would have never thought in a million years. I was like, speakers get paid this much? I was shocked.
You're scaring people now. I want, in fact, I want to look now. Obviously, this is a podcast, so most people are, most people meaning the millions of people that are listening right now. They can also see this on video. So I'm looking right at the camera now, and I'm telling you, when I saw that Holly was speaking at the first event that I met her at, I had that same reaction, which is, so she did a reality show. I mean,
100%.
How does that qualify her to be a motivational speaker? I'm here to tell you, she puts on a show. I mean, she is so good. So whatever she's charging now, it's well worth it, I'm sure. So I'm sorry I interrupted, but I had to get that plug in.
But it's the truth. I mean,
whatever she's charging, it's worth it. It's the truth. She's telling you right now.
No, I'm saying about the reality show, because I get that a lot. And then I start telling my story about, how I grew up. I was raised in an abusive family, and, it's a total turnaround. And I also think it's a lesson that everybody needs to hear. We all go through something, right? Even when I went through my divorce, I couldn't even say the word divorce. I was like, no, this isn't happening to me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm human, but I also need to be friends with Charlie. I'm not going to be an angry woman the rest of my life. So we all go through things, but it's how we handle them and what we learn from them and how we grow from them. That's what's so very important.
And along those lines, for instance, with respect to the divorce, is that something that you've incorporated in any of your presentations?
I haven't, because I just don't want to bring it to stage. I still talk about Charlie in my presentation because on day 33, our loved ones came and we did a challenge together. And there were 6 people left at that point of the game. So he is part of my story. And you know what? He always will be. We have 3 wonderful children together, 5 great, wonderful grandchildren together. And so he'll always be part of my story. But for now, I still struggle talking about it because it's still very painful.
Well, I know, and I'm sure Dana would say the same. I appreciate the fact that you have spoken openly about it here, and I'm sure our audience does as well. As far as, though, you mentioned customizing your presentations depending on the audience. Now, you don't start from scratch don't you have some themes that you kind of stay within a framework when you're doing that?
Yes, I have like a basic story. And then usually what I do is I research who I'm speaking for. If they have a mission statement, I bring that in. And I send out a contract to people and I have a couple discussions with them. Like, what do you expect from me? What would you like for me to incorporate? Like, a lot of it right now is adapting to the now. We're all in survival mode. But you know what? We've survived 2020. Now it's time to thrive. I've been doing a lot of that. And how can you thrive? And the 6 words that I talk about are attitude, determination, competence, desire, perseverance, and faith. So those are the 6 words that I bring into my presentation just by telling my survivor story.
So then you wrap the theme around those words and customize it according to the audience.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
I'm simplifying because that's what I do. try to simplify things. Now, I know that we have spent some time getting to know Holly BS before Survivor and also during and after Survivor, but now it's time to really drill down and get into some really serious questions. And I know Dana has been really dying to ask some of these questions, so I'm going to let her start off with some of her questions.
Absolutely.
I actually do have a real question, and I'm glad you brought up the 6 things that you talk about. I looked them, I wrote them down from your website, and talking about the pandemic that we've been in for the last 20 years now. I personally fell into kind of a bit of a pandemic pity party this weekend because I just hit one of those places where I'm over it, even though that's really not an option. So how do you, I'm sure you still have those moments because we're all human. How do you pick yourself up out of those moments and kind of find your way back to these six key words for you?
I think what I do is I surround myself with the right people. Sure. Now alone.
She doesn't have that option, unfortunately. She's working here, so.
And now being alone, I was so used to traveling and being around people all the time. And now I'm in this house by myself a lot of times all day. Yeah. And it does get depressing. I was the same place. I was like, I would give a presentation and I'm looking at the green light and I'm smiling and then I turn the camera off and I walk away. And I'm like, whereas I was going to a speech, I could go to the social hour and I could talk to people afterwards. So, but you have a choice. You can either look at what you don't have, or you can look at what you have. I have a home, I have heat, I have food, I have a family who loves me, I have, kids that call me all the time to see how I'm doing. Your life could be so much worse. This is something we are going to get through. And that's kind of how I would get through it. By being thankful and grateful for what I have and not looking at what I don't have. What I don't have is, I can't get on a plane. I can't go to a live event and get up on a stage. You know what? That's okay, because that's going to come back. Yep. And so you got to look at what you have. And we've all been there, Dana. There's been times where I've sat in this house and I've literally cried, thinking, is my job, am I still going to be able to do this job? But it's how you get back up is call somebody. Don't think that you can do it on your own, because we can't.
I think that's huge.
Call somebody and vent to somebody and say, you know what, you don't have to say anything, just listen to me. And that makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
So
I think that's important.
Well, since you're taking a pause to find your real questions, Dana, I do want to ask you, Holly, what is you're looking for this year? What would you like to see in your life, and what would you like to see for the country occur in the next 12 months?
Well, when I go on stage or go to events, I never talk about politics, but I'm not, I'm just going to look at the overall, what I would like to see. We all need more kindness in our lives. There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of going this way and going this way. Where is that getting us? No. Mm-hmm. Where does anger get you? Where does destruction get you? It doesn't get you anywhere. I would love to see for this country to come together and say, you know what, this is how we have to resolve this situation. And here's another thing. You're not always going to agree with a politician who's been elected. You will not always agree, but they've been elected. They're doing their best. Let's support them.
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what? This is the way it's going to be. How are we going to make this better? So that's what I would like to see for the country is stop the anger, stop the violence, stop the fighting. How can you do that? I wish I could go and talk to every high school, in the United States and say, listen, this is how kindness, it's one word, it's kindness.
It's kindergarten basics.
What would I like to see for myself? I'm just ready to, I just want to stay healthy. I want to enjoy my family, enjoy my grandkids, and keep booking presentations and hopefully getting on stage. I did just book one in Delaware last week, a live event. So that's what I would like to see. But I think the most important thing is I just want to stay healthy. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So that's one thing that's very important to me.
Yeah, I imagine most of your presentations this past year had to have been via Zoom or virtual in some fashion. Yeah.
And I was lucky because I was driving home from Iowa and I just did a presentation in March. And one of my bureaus called and said, we need to start doing virtuals immediately. And I said, what? I said, this, because I just was like, this is not going to happen.
Right.
And next week, I had a camera guy at my house and we shot a promo video. And I honestly I had done one virtual.
Wow.
Wow, but
you learn fast.
And, did I like them right away? I didn't, because you're talking and you're looking at the green light. You don't know if people are laughing or if they're watching or if they're on their phone, but you give your story and you hope that they're listening to it. But you know what? I've done quite a few now and I'm beginning to like them. And if I continue to do them and live, that's the change that I will make.
Sure, a nice mix of the two.
Yes.
Makes things easier.
Dana, you have to ask Holly some of those questions.
Yeah, I have burning questions. These are going to be the most important questions of the podcast for everybody. So I would love to know, who is your favorite superhero?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's really not, how do I say not a superhero? Can I answer that in a different way?
However you like.
My mom is my superhero.
Aww.
She set the example of hard work, never giving up. She never complained when we had nothing. She always said things are going to get better. And to this day, she is my hero. I dedicated my book to my mom because to this day, she's a huge supporter. I love her to death.
Yay, Mom.
Yes.
Okay, so if you had to describe yourself as like a farm animal that you identify with most, which farm animal would you choose?
Oh boy, what farm? A farm animal. Oh gosh, that's a hard one.
It actually it is.
You've never been asked that one before, have you?
Never. This is the first time I've ever been asked that question. Well, okay, I hope the viewers don't laugh when I say this, but I would have to say there's dogs on the farm, and dogs can kind of just run around the farm and be free and just go with the flow. So I have to say a dog.
And they don't get eaten usually. So.
Exactly.
That's good. I hadn't thought about it from that angle. Dennis always comes at it from a different angle that you never thought of. We asked him the question of, that if you were stranded on a deserted island, what are 3 things you would need to have with you? And naturally, he's like a map, gas, and a boat. And that just cut the conversation completely. No, everybody was like mind blown. It's over. It's over.
I have one for you that maybe it's a little insightful, but if someone was going to do a movie of your life story, who plays Holly Hoffman?
Oh, okay, you're probably gonna laugh again. I love this actress. Okay, Julia Roberts. Are you kidding me?
Of course,
yeah.
I'd have her play my life story. So yeah, perfect. And what's the movie called, by the way?
What would be the movie called? Moving Forward. I don't know. That's a very basic name. I don't know.
It's,
Surviving, thriving and surviving. I don't know.
I like it.
Dana, you have any more really compelling questions?
Not exactly. I do want to know, though, what is the first thing you did after you were voted off of the island?
Well, I remember as I was voted off, I was walking off and the cameras were in front of me. And I started talking. And I said, you know what? I knew coming and playing this game, no matter what happens, my family and friends are going to be proud of me back home. And then they take you away and you do an interview. And then they take you back to what's called the Ponderosa. And as I walked into the Ponderosa, all those people that I had voted off are there. So, of course, my first worry was, how are they going to treat me? They all hate me. I voted them off. I wrote their names down. I schemed to get them off. And
part of the game.
I had a few that didn't talk to me. In fact, one lady that I voted off, she didn't talk to me for a year. Yeah, she was very angry. But a couple gals came up to me, and one of them remembered me saying that my favorite candy bar is a Snickers. So she walked up to me and she handed me a king-size Snickers bar. Aww. And so I walked up into the kitchen and I grabbed a jar of peanut butter, dumped the Snickers bar into the jar of peanut butter and ate the whole jar of peanut butter, and then I threw up. So that didn't make sense.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's probably the best meal and the worst meal that you've ever had, right?
But the first thing I did is, of course I wanted to take a shower because I hadn't showered in 38 days, brushed my teeth. But when I looked at myself in the mirror, my first thought was, this is how I'm going to look on national television. I lost 22 pounds. Wow. So I was very thin. I was dirty. I smelled. So I think I remember just.
And you're so big now, but.
Well, so that was the first thing I did is I just wanted food. And then you get sick. You have a hard time keeping it down for a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we let you go today, we have to play a little game.
Okay.
This is called Would You Rather. Okay.
Okay.
So, would you rather sing everything you say or have to raise your hand every time you say something?
Sing everything I say.
Good. Good. So that means now, the rest of the game, you have to sing your response. You didn't know that was part of the game? Okay. Okay, so would you rather have to wear a wedding dress with a tiara all the time or a bikini?
A wedding dress!
Same. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the pandemic has been very good to me.
Okay. Yeah, we've all had that COVID-19. You know, this is a true story. I went to the doctor a few weeks ago just for a checkup, and he came in his Indian accent, which is very cute, and I don't mean this in any derogatory sense, but he said, "So, you have the COVID-19." And I actually had COVID in October.
Okay.
And I said, no, I had it, but it's been gone since then. And he said, no, you don't understand. You have the COVID-19. You gained 19 pounds in 6 months since you've been here last. And I'm like, I'm surprised it's not a lot more than that. But anyway, enough about my problems. Would you rather be slapped across the face every time you greet someone or be given a wedgie every time you leave them?
I'm going with the wedgie.
All right. I don't blame you. And then the last one that I have, and this one's not mine, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but would you rather have skin that changes color based on your emotions or tattoos all over your body depicting what you did yesterday?
That jar of peanut butter.
That is a hard one. You know what? I'm going with the tattoos. I'm going.
All right. That's a bold choice, I think.
It would keep you honest.
Yeah.
Definitely keep you honest.
Very, just like those cameras, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, I would.
Well,
some of the tattoos I'd be afraid to show, but you know what?
depending on the day, right? What happened yesterday. Well, Holly, thanks for being such a great sport. Thank you for being here with us today. I definitely want to have you back and talk some more with you. I always enjoy talking to you. Love you so much, and it's been great catching up.
Yes, love you too. And it was great to see you, Dennis, and great to meet you, Dana. I was very honored to be on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so
Holly.
Our thanks to Holly Hoffman. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts, Legal Squeaks, and hopefully you'll tune in here next time soon. Love you all. Have a great day and be safe.